The night sky burned with falling stars. Daeho stood on his porch, watching the meteor shower paint streaks of light across the darkness. He held a warm cup of tea in his calloused hands. The farm was quiet around him, just the way it had been for 3 years now. Too quiet. If he was being honest with himself, New Jeju Colony wasn't much to look at. A few hundred families spread across farmland, growing food for the mining operations further north. Daeho's hydroponics farm sat on the edge of everything, where the worked land met wild territory. He liked it that way. Fewer neighbors meant fewer questions about why he lived alone. The meteor shower ended around midnight. Daeho finished his tea and walked inside, planning to sleep. But something nagged at him. One of those meteors had looked different. Closer. Brighter. He tried to ignore it, climbing into bed. But sleep wouldn't come. At 2 a.m, Daeho gave up. He pulled on his work boots and grabbed a flashlight. If something had hit his property, he needed to check for fire or damage. The night air was cool as he walked along the fence line, sweeping his light across the fields. He found the crater 20 minutes later. It wasn't large, maybe 10 feet across, still smoking slightly. But there was something in the middle of it. Something moving. Daeho approached carefully. His heart hammered in his chest. The colony had strict rules about alien contact. New Jeju was supposed to be an uninhabited world. They'd done surveys. But the galaxy was big, and surveys weren't perfect. The creature in the crater was small. Very small. About the size of a house cat. Curled up on its side. Its skin looked like scales, but they shimmered in his flashlight beam, changing colors from blue to purple to green. It had 4 limbs, a long tail, and a head with 2 large eyes that reflected his light. Those eyes looked terrified. "Hey there," Daeho said softly, the way he might talk to a scared animal. "You're hurt, aren't you?" The creature made a sound, something between a chirp and a whimper. One of its legs was bent at a wrong angle. Burns marked its scales. It tried to crawl away from him but couldn't move far. Daeho knew he should call the colony authorities. There were protocols for this. Quarantine procedures. Scientific teams. But he looked at that small, frightened thing, and all he could think about was his son. How young he'd been. How scared at the end. He made a decision that would change everything. Daeho took off his jacket and carefully wrapped it around the creature. It struggled weakly, making soft, distressed sounds. But it was too injured to fight. He lifted it gently and carried it back to his house. In his kitchen, under bright lights, Daeho got his first good look at what he'd found. The creature was clearly young, whatever it was. Its scales were soft, not fully hardened. It had small nubs on its head that might become horns later. Its claws were tiny and dull. "What are you?" Daeho wondered aloud. He had basic medical supplies for farm accidents. He did what he could, setting the broken leg with a splint, cleaning the burns, offering water. The creature watched him with those huge eyes the whole time. Intelligent eyes, not like an animal's at all. When he finished, Daeho put the creature in a box with soft blankets. It curled up immediately, exhausted. Within minutes, it was asleep. Daeho sat at his kitchen table, realizing what he'd done. He'd brought an unknown alien into his home, broken about 15 laws, possibly exposed himself to diseases, definitely put himself at risk. But looking at that sleeping creature, he didn't regret it. The next morning brought problems. Jiwoo, the colony administrator, arrived in her official vehicle. She was a sharp woman in her 40s, efficient, and by the book. Someone had reported seeing lights on Daeho's property during the meteor shower. "Just checking my fences," Daeho lied, standing in his doorway, blocking her view inside. "Sensors picked up an impact near your farm," Jiwoo said, pulling up data on her tablet. "We need to investigate possible contamination. I found the crater. Nothing in it but rock and dirt. Already filled it in." Jiwoo's eyes narrowed. She'd known Daeho for 5 years. She knew when he was hiding something. Daeho, if there's something out there, we need to know. It's not just about rules. It's about safety. There's nothing, he said firmly. She studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Fine. But I'm filing a report. If anything unusual happens, you tell me immediately. Understood? Understood. After she left, Daeho returned to the kitchen. The creature was awake, watching him from its box. It made a soft, questioning sound. You're going to get me in trouble, Daeho told it. But I guess we're in this together now. The days that followed formed a strange routine. Daeho worked his farm during the day, checking on the creature between tasks. It healed quickly, faster than any earth animal would. Within a week, it was walking on all 4 legs again, exploring his house with curious energy. It was smart. Incredibly smart. When Daeho pointed at things, it learned their names. When he showed it how to use the water dispenser, it understood immediately. It watched him cook and tried to imitate his movements. 2 weeks after finding it, Daeho realized he needed a name for the creature. He sat on his living room floor, and it climbed into his lap. Something it had started doing. It felt warm and alive. Real. I'm going to call you Minho, Daeho said quietly. After my son. Minho looked up at him and made a soft, almost purring sound. He curled against Daeho's chest. That was when Daeho started crying. The first real tears he'd shed in 3 years. All the grief he'd buried came up at once. His wife, his child, everything he'd lost to the plague that swept through the colony. Minho didn't understand human tears, but he seemed to understand sadness. He pressed closer, offering what comfort he could. The bond formed in that moment. Not pet and owner, not even human and alien. Something deeper. Something that would echo across the years to come. A month passed. Minho grew noticeably larger, now the size of a medium dog. His scales hardened and developed more complex patterns. The nubs on his head grew into small, crystalline horns. He started making different sounds, more varied and complex. Daeho built him a translator device, something simple that could match sounds to meanings. The first word Minho learned to say through it was Daeho. The second was home, but keeping Minho's secret became harder. The colony's security chief, Hyunwoo, stopped by one day. He was a suspicious man, former military, who thought every problem needed a weapon pointed at it. People say they hear strange noises from your farm, Hyunwoo said, hand resting on his sidearm. Just the hydroponics equipment, Daeho replied. Old systems make weird sounds. Mind if I take a look? I do, actually. Unless you have a warrant. They stared at each other. Finally, Hyunwoo stepped back. You're hiding something, old man. When I find out what, there will be consequences. After he left, Daeho found Minho hiding in the closet, scared by the angry stranger's voice. He held the young alien close. I won't let anyone hurt you, Daeho promised. You're safe here. You're home, Minho's translator crackled. Safe, he repeated. Then, softer. Father, Daeho's breath caught. He hadn't taught Minho that word. The young alien had learned it on his own, understanding what it meant, choosing to use it. Yes, Daeho whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I'm here, son. I'm here. Outside, the stars turned in their endless dance. Somewhere out there, Minho's people lived and fought and searched for their lost child. But in a small farmhouse on the edge of New Jeju Colony, a human and an alien built something the galaxy had never seen before. They built a family, and neither of them knew yet how much that would matter. How that bond, forged in loneliness and kindness, would one day save thousands of lives. How the smallest cub would return as the mightiest warrior. But that was still years away. For now, there was just a man and the child he'd chosen to save, learning what it meant to love across the stars. 5 years changed everything and nothing at all. Daeho's farm still sat on the edge of New Jeju Colony, still grew the same crops in the same fields. But the house itself had transformed. Reinforced doorways, higher ceilings, furniture built stronger and heavier. All because of Minho. The small cub who once fit in a box now stood as tall as Daeho's chest when on all 4 legs. His scales had darkened to deep blue-black, with veins of silver running through them. His horns had grown into curved, crystalline structures that caught light and bent it into rainbows. His muscles moved under his skin like coiled cables. He was beautiful and strange and utterly alien. And he was still Daeho's son. "Careful with that," Daeho called out, as Minho lifted a storage container that should have needed 3 men to move. The young Velkari set it down gently, his translator unit chirping. "Too heavy for you?" Minho asked, concern in his multi-toned voice. "Too heavy for most humans," Daeho corrected, smiling. "But you're doing fine. Just remember your strength." They were working in the greenhouse, preparing for the planting season. Minho helped with the farm work every day now. What used to take Daeho hours alone now took them minutes together. The colony had finally accepted Minho's presence, though it had taken years of careful introduction. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source. Unji, a xenobiologist who'd arrived 3 years ago, had taken immediate interest in Minho, unlike Hyunwoo's suspicion or Jiwoo's concern. Unji approached with scientific curiosity and genuine kindness. "He's remarkable," Unji had said during her first visit, watching Minho carefully transplant seedlings with claws that could easily crush stone. "His fine motor control is incredible for a being his size." Now Unji visited twice a week, documenting Minho's development, helping Daeho understand the changes happening to his adopted son. She'd become a good friend to both of them. "Daeho," Unji's voice called from outside. She entered the greenhouse with her usual armload of equipment and endless energy. "I need to run some new scans. Minho's growth rate is accelerating again." Minho's translator clicked. "More tests?" "Just a few," Unji promised. "I brought those fruit bars you like. The purple ones? 3 boxes. Minho's tail swished happily, a gesture Daeho had learned meant contentment. "Okay, tests are acceptable." As Unji set up her scanner, Daeho watched the interaction with quiet pleasure. This was good. Minho needed more people in his life than just one aging farmer. He needed community, connection, the things any young person needed. But lately, something had been changing. Minho experienced headaches, strange dreams, moments where he seemed to be listening to something no one else could hear. "Still having the dreams?" Unji asked as she ran her scanner over Minho's horns. "Every night now," Minho replied. His translator had become more sophisticated over the years, carrying nuances of emotion. Now it conveyed worry. "I see. Others. Like me. Many of them. Moving together. Fighting together. Genetic memory, possibly," Unji murmured, checking her readings. "Many species have instinctive knowledge passed down. Though this seems more vivid than usual." Daeho felt a cold weight in his stomach. He'd known this day might come. The day when Minho would want to find his own kind. The day when being part of a human family wouldn't be enough. That night, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Minho spoke quietly. "Father, do you think my people are looking for me?" Daeho took a breath. "I don't know, son. Maybe. If they are, they haven't found Earth or the colonies yet. Would you be sad if they came?" The honest question deserved an honest answer. "Part of me would be sad. Yes. Scared of losing you. But another part would be happy for you. You deserve to know where you come from." Minho's large head leaned against Daeho's shoulder, a gesture of affection he'd learned from humans. "I'm where you grew up," Daeho corrected gently. "But you had a life before me. A people. A purpose, maybe. My purpose is here." Daeho wanted to believe that. But the dreams Minho described sounded like something deeper than imagination, like a calling. The answer came 2 weeks later, in the worst possible way. Daeho was in town getting supplies when the alarms went off. Unidentified ships had entered the system. Not human. Not any known species. The colony went to alert status immediately. Hyunwoo's voice boomed over the public speakers. All citizens to designated shelters. This is not a drill. Repeat. Not a drill. Daeho's first thought was Minho. He'd left him at the farm alone. He ran for his transport vehicle, supplies forgotten. Behind him, he could hear Jiwoo shouting orders, organizing the evacuation. But all he cared about was getting home. The drive took forever. When he finally reached his farm, he found Minho outside, standing perfectly still, staring at the sky. 3 ships hung in the atmosphere above them. Sleek, organic-looking. They seemed to be grown rather than built, all curves and flowing lines. Minho. Daeho jumped from his vehicle. Get inside. But Minho didn't move. His translator was making sounds Daeho had never heard before. Complex sequences. Almost like language. Like Minho was talking to the ships. One of the vessels descended, landing in the field next to the house. It was enormous up close, easily 200 feet long. A section of its hull eye-rised open, and figures emerged. They looked like Minho would in another 10 years. Massive beings, 12 feet tall, covered in armored scales. They moved with predatory grace, each step purposeful and controlled. Their horns were larger, more elaborate. They carried weapons that seemed to be part of their bodies, growing from their arms. Daeho stepped between them and Minho instinctively, even though he was a fraction of their size. Stay back. The lead warrior stopped. It tilted its head, studying Daeho with eyes that glowed faintly blue. When it spoke, a translator on its chest converted the words to human language. You are the caretaker. I'm his father. Daeho said firmly. Impossible. You are different species. I'm still his father. The warrior looked past Daeho to Minho. Young one, you are Velkari. You were lost in a scouting accident 7 cycles ago. We have searched. You will return now. Minho moved forward, standing beside Daeho rather than behind him. This is my home. Your home is with your war pack, with your people. You are entering maturation phase. You must be with your own kind for the transformation. Transformation? Daeho asked, fear creeping into his voice. The warrior's expression might have been sympathy. He is still a child. When maturation completes, he will triple in size, gain his full abilities, become what he is meant to be. This cannot happen here, among fragile beings. Yoonji's voice came from behind them. She'd driven out during the alarm, worried about them. That's what the growth acceleration means. He's entering puberty, essentially. A rapid change phase. He could hurt you, the warrior said to Daeho, not meaning to. But in maturation, we lose control sometimes. He could destroy this place. You. Everyone here. Daeho looked at Minho. His son. His child. Who was going to change into something else? Something powerful. And possibly dangerous. I would never hurt father, Minho said. But his voice carried uncertainty. The warrior knelt, bringing himself closer to Minho's level. You cannot control the maturation. None of us could. It is biology. Instinct. You need teachers. Training. Your war pack. The standoff lasted hours. More Velkari emerged from the ship. Jiwoo and Hyunwoo arrived with colony security, though their weapons seemed pathetic compared to the Velkari warriors. Everyone talked and argued and explained. In the end, it was Minho who made the choice. I will go with them, he said quietly. In the evening as the sun set red and gold. I will learn what I am. But I will come back. I promise, father. I will come back. Daeho wanted to argue, wanted to fight, wanted to keep his son safe here on the farm where nothing would change. But he couldn't, because loving someone meant wanting what was best for them, even when it hurt. How long? He asked. The warrior leader, who'd introduced himself as Taiwan, answered, Maturation takes 12 to 15 cycles. Then training. 20 cycles perhaps. Maybe more. 20 years. Daeho would be in his 70s if he lived that long. An old man. I'll wait, he said simply. That night, Minho packed the few things he wanted to take. His first translator, a photo of him and Daeho, a stone from the crater where Daeho had found him. In the morning, they stood by the Valkyrie ship. Minho had grown even in the last day, his body responding to proximity to his own kind. Remember who you are, Daeho said, holding Minho's large clawed hand in both of his. Remember this place. Remember that you're more than just a warrior. I will remember everything. Minho promised. His translator couldn't quite capture the emotion in his voice, but Daeho heard it anyway. Thank you, Father, for finding me, for choosing me. It was the easiest choice I ever made. They embraced, human and Valkyrie, father and son. Then Minho walked up the ramp into the ship with the other warriors. The hull closed behind him. Daeho stood in his field and watched the ships rise into the sky, carrying his son away to a future he couldn't follow. Unyi stood beside him, silent support. He'll come back, she said finally. I know, Daeho replied, but his voice broke on the words. The ships vanished into the stars, and Daeho went back to his quiet farm, his empty house. But he'd wait. However long it took, he'd wait. 12 years felt like a lifetime and a moment all at once. Daeho stood in front of the small memorial he kept in his living room. A shelf with Minho's first translator, now silent and outdated. The photo of them together in the greenhouse. The purple fruit bar wrappers Minho had loved, carefully preserved in a frame. Small things that held enormous meaning. He was 57 now. His hair had gone completely gray. His hands had more aches than they used to. But the farm still ran, and he still woke up every morning and did the work. New Jeju had changed too. What started as a small farming colony had grown into a major trade hub. The population had increased tenfold. New buildings covered what used to be empty land. Ships came and went daily from the expanded spaceport. Daeho served on the colony council now. Jiwoo, who'd become governor 6 years ago, had insisted. We need people who remember what this place used to be, she'd said. People who built it with their own hands. So he attended meetings and voted on regulations and helped plan the colony's future. It gave him purpose, kept him busy, kept him from thinking too much about the silence, because in 12 years, there had been no word from Minho, no messages, no visits, nothing. Daeho told himself this was normal. The Valkyrie lived differently than humans. They were warriors, constantly moving, constantly fighting. But late at night, doubt crept in. Maybe Minho had forgotten. Maybe his Valkyrie life had erased his human one. Maybe Daeho had just been a temporary caretaker. Nothing more. Still talking to ghosts? Unji's voice came from the doorway. She let herself in without knocking, the way old friends do. She'd aged too, lines around her eyes. But she was still energetic and endlessly curious. Just remembering, Daeho said. Well, stop remembering and come with me. Council meeting. In an hour. Emergency session. What kind of emergency? Yoonji's expression darkened. The kind that might kill us all. The council chamber was packed. Governor Jiwoo stood at the front, her face grave. Holographic displays showed star maps and fleet movements. Next to her stood Hyunwoo, now chief of planetary defense, looking older and grimmer than ever. The situation is simple, Jiwoo began without preamble. The swarm has entered our sector. Murmurs ran through the room. Everyone knew about the swarm. For 5 years, Reports had come from the outer colonies. A parasitic species that consumed everything in its path. Entire worlds stripped to bedrock. Populations absorbed into the hive. Nothing left behind but dead rocks. How long until they reach us? Someone asked. Hyunwoo brought up tactical displays. 3 months at their current speed. Maybe 4. What about the fleet? Another counselor demanded. Already engaged elsewhere, Hyunwoo said flatly. The swarm is attacking on 15 fronts simultaneously. There aren't enough ships to defend everyone, so we evacuate, Daeho said. All eyes turned to him. We save who we can. We're trying, Jiwoo said. But we have 300,000 people here now. We don't have enough transport ships. Even if we started today, we'd only get half the population out before the swarm arrives. The room erupted in arguments and panic. Daeho sat quietly, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. Half the population. That meant 150,000 people would be left behind. 150,000 deaths. We fight, Hyunwoo said, his voice cutting through the noise. We have some weapons. Orbital platforms. Ground defenses. It's not much, but we make them pay for every inch. That's suicide, Unji said. It's buying time for the evacuation, Daeho stood. Then we need volunteers. People to stay behind and operate the defenses, while others escape. Jiwoo looked at him with sad understanding. Daeho, you don't have to. Yes, I do. This is my home. These are my people. If we're asking some to stay and fight, I'll be one of them. The meeting continued for hours, planning the impossible. Evacuation schedules. Defense positions. Supply distribution. Every decision felt like choosing who would live and who would die. As people filed out, Yoonji cornered Daeho. Where else would I go? Somewhere safe. Somewhere you could grow old, peacefully. Daeho smiled sadly. I grew old here. This is where I found my son. This is where I'll wait for him, even if he never comes. Yoonji hugged him fiercely. You're an idiot. But I'm staying too. Someone needs to document this scientifically. Now who's the idiot? The next 3 months moved with terrible speed. Ships came and went, carrying refugees. Families said goodbye, not knowing if they'd see each other again. Those who stayed behind, prepared for war. Daeho trained with weapons he'd never wanted to touch, helped fortify positions, coordinated with other volunteers. Among them was a young woman named Sujin, barely 20, who'd lost her parents to a mining accident years ago. She reminded him of Minho, somehow. Same fierce determination. Same refusal to back down. Why are you staying? He asked her one evening, as they reinforced a defense bunker. My parents built this colony with their sweat and blood, she said simply. I won't abandon it. You? Someone I loved lived here once, maybe still does, somewhere. I want to protect that memory. She nodded, understanding. They didn't need more words than that. The swarm arrived 3 weeks ahead of schedule. Daeho was in the command center when the alarms sounded. The screens showed them coming. Not ships in the traditional sense. Biological vessels, organic and twisted. They moved through space like a school of predatory fish, thousands of them, blotting out the stars. Defensive platforms firing, Hyunwoo reported. His voice was steady, but his hands shook. The orbital weapons opened up, railing rounds and missiles into the approaching horde. Some of the bioships exploded, spraying organic matter into space. But for every one destroyed, 10 more took its place. They're entering atmosphere, a technician called out. Multiple landing sites. They're surrounding the colony. Daeho ran to the window. In the distance, he could see them falling like rain. The swarm vessels hit the ground and burst open, releasing creatures that defied description. Insectoid, reptilian, mammalian, all mixed together in horrible combinations. Ground forces, engage, Hyunwoo ordered. The defense platforms opened fire. Automated turrets tracked and eliminated targets. Human volunteers in fortified positions added their weapons to the defense. The noise was deafening, the air filled with smoke and screams, and the screeching of dying swarm creatures. But there were so many. For every one killed, 5 more appeared. Daeho found himself at a barricade with Sujin and a dozen others, firing at the approaching horde. His hands remembered the training. Point. Shoot. Reload. Again. Again. Don't think. Just survive. Fall back to secondary positions. Hyunwoo's voice crackled over comms. We can't hold the perimeter. They retreated, fighting every step. Daeho saw good people die, saw courage and terror in equal measure, saw the swarm adapt to their tactics with horrifying intelligence. By nightfall, they'd been pushed back to the colony center. Half their defenses were gone. The evacuation ships had stopped coming. They were alone. Daeho sat in a ruined building, reloading his weapon with shaking hands. Sujin was beside him, bleeding from a cut on her forehead, but still fighting. We're not going to win this, she said quietly. No, Daeho agreed. But we're going to make it count. Unji found them an hour later. I sent a final transmission, she said. To everyone. Every frequency. A distress call. I don't know if anyone will hear it. But the building shook. Something massive was moving through the colony. Something bigger than the creatures they'd been fighting. Daeho looked out through a broken wall and saw it. A swarm bio-titan. 50 feet tall, covered in armor plating and weapon growths. It crushed buildings with every step, heading straight for the command center where the last defenders were gathered. That's it then, Hyunwoo's voice came over comms. It's been an honor serving with you all. Daeho closed his eyes. He thought of Minho. Hoped he was happy. Wherever he was. Hoped he'd become the warrior his people needed him to be. Hoped he remembered. Sometimes, the human who'd found him in a crater and loved him. And then the sky tore open with light. Ships appeared. Not human. Not swarm. Valkyrie warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly into the atmosphere. A maneuver that should have been impossible. They were massive, beautiful, deadly. The lead ship fired, a beam of concentrated energy that vaporized the bio-titan in a single shot. More beams lanced down, eliminating swarm positions with surgical precision. Drop pods launched from the Valkyrie ships, crashing into the ground around the colony. The pods opened, and warriors emerged. 12-foot-tall Valkyrie, in full battle array. Their scales gleaming like metal. Their weapons integrated into their bodies. They moved through the swarm forces like death itself. Unstoppable and terrifying. And leading them, larger than the others, his scales marked with silver patterns, Daeho recognized, even from a distance, was Minho. He came back. Daeho whispered, tears streaming down his face. My son came back. On the battlefield, Minho's voice boomed across all frequencies, translated into human language. Protect the colony. Protect the humans. Protect my home. The Valkyrie answered with a battle cry that shook the ground, and the tide of war began to turn. The Valkyrie warriors moved like a force of nature through the swarm forces. Daeho watched from the ruined building as they fought, and it was like nothing he'd ever seen. These weren't soldiers following orders. They were apex predators, doing what they were born to do. Each warrior was a weapon. Every part of their body designed for combat. Energy blasts fired from growths on their arms. Their scales deflected impacts that would destroy armor. Their claws tore through swarm creatures like paper, and Minho led them all. He'd changed so much. Daeho had thought Minho was large before, but the warrior on the battlefield stood 12 feet tall, maybe more. His shoulders were broader than a doorway. His horns had grown into elaborate crowns of crystal that glowed with inner light. Battle scars marked his scales, telling stories of fights Daeho would never know. But when Minho fought, there was something familiar in his movements. The same determination, The same protective instinct. The same heart. A group of swarm creatures broke through toward the building where Daeho sheltered. Before he could raise his weapon, Minho was there. He moved with impossible speed for something so large, placing himself between the swarm and the humans. His roar shook the air. Energy gathered around his horns, then exploded outward in a wave that incinerated the approaching creatures. He turned, and his eyes met Daeho's through the broken wall. For a moment, everything else faded. The battle, the noise, the danger. There was just a father and son seeing each other, after 12 years apart. Abog. Minho's voice came through his translator. Deeper now, but still carrying that same tone. Daeho remembered. Father. Minho. Daeho breathed. You came back. I promised. Then the moment broke as more swarm forces approached. Minho turned back to the battle. But his voice came through Daeho's comm unit. Stay there. Stay safe. I will protect you. The Velkari established a defensive perimeter around the colony center, pushing the swarm back with devastating efficiency. Daeho watched Minho coordinate the defense, his tactical mind working on multiple levels at once. He directed warriors with quick commands, adapted to swarm tactics instantly, protected human positions while eliminating threats. This was what the Velkari had trained him for. This was what he'd become. Sujin stood beside Daeho, staring in awe. That's him? The cub you found? That's my son, Daeho said, pride thick in his voice. The battle raged through the night. The swarm kept coming, wave after wave, but the Velkari held. Human defenders added their fire to the defense, and slowly, impossibly, they started to win. As dawn broke, Minho fought his way to the command center, where Daeho had taken shelter with the other volunteers. Up close, he was even more impressive, and more frightening. This was a being designed for war, covered in weapons, radiating power. But when he looked at Daeho, his eyes were gentle. You stayed to fight, Minho said. It wasn't a question. It's my home, Daeho replied. Someone taught me that home is worth fighting for. Drab. Other Velkari warriors gathered around them, curious. They towered over the humans, making everyone nervous. One warrior, his scales marked with command insignias, approached. This is the one? He asked Minho in their language. Minho's translator converted it for Daeho. Yes, Commander Taewan. This is my father. Taewan studied Daeho with intense focus. You are small, fragile. How did you raise a Velkari? The same way you raise anyone, Daeho said, refusing to be intimidated. Love. Taewan repeated the word like he was testing it. Minho speaks of this often. Of human concepts. It makes him strange among us. It makes him better, another warrior said. This one was younger, with fewer scars. He fights not just with rage, but with purpose. He protects rather than just destroys. It makes him weak, a third warrior growled. Too concerned with saving everyone. Warriors accept losses. Minho's voice cut through, hard as steel. Warriors accept necessary losses. I accept nothing unnecessary. Every life here has value. Before the argument could continue, alarms blared. Unji's voice came over the comms. We have a problem. The swarm is adapting faster than expected. They're learning our tactics. The Velkari tactics. Daeho and Minho ran to the command center together. Hyunwoo had tactical displays showing the battlefield. The swarm was changing. Creatures that had been disorganized before now moved with coordination. They focused fire on Velkari weak points. Adapted their biology to resist Velkari weapons. They're hive-minded, Unji explained. Every time we kill one, the others learn from it. They're using our own advantages against us. Taewan studied the displays with a warrior's eye. We need to destroy their coordination node, the central intelligence directing them. Where is it? Hyunwoo asked. Usually at the center of their formation. Taewan brought up a scan. There. That massive biostructure. They're building. The screens showed it. A growing organic tower, pulsing with sickly light. Swarm creatures were adding to it constantly, building it bigger, making it stronger. We can't get close, Hyunwoo said. They're protecting it too heavily. We can, Minho said quietly, but it will require a focused assault. Everything we have. That leaves the colony exposed, Daeho said. Yes, the weight of the choice hung in the air. Attack and possibly win, but risk the colony being overrun. Or defend and slowly lose ground until they were destroyed anyway. Do it. Jiwoo's voice came through the comms. She was in a shelter with the civilians. We didn't come this far to die slowly. Take the fight to them. 1. Do it calm. 1. Taewon nodded. We attack at midday. Maximum force. The next hours were preparation. Velkari warriors checked their weapons and armor. Humans fortified the colony center's defenses. Daeho worked alongside Minho, helping where he could. You grew up well, Daeho said as they worked. I'm proud of you. The Velkari taught me to fight, Minho replied. But you taught me why to fight. What's worth protecting? That matters more. Your commander doesn't seem to think so. Taewon is old-way Velkari. Honorable but rigid. The younger warriors understand better. We're changing, father. Because of contact with humans. Because of what I showed them. What did you show them? Minho's massive hand gently touched Daeho's shoulder. That strength without compassion is just cruelty. That protecting the weak isn't weakness. That family can be chosen, not just born. Daeho felt tears prick his eyes. You remembered. I remembered everything. Midday came too quickly. The Velkari gathered for the assault. 60 warriors against thousands of swarm creatures. The odds were terrible. But they were warriors. Odds didn't matter. Minho stood at the front, addressing his pack and the human defenders listening in. We fight today for home, he said. For the bonds we choose. For the right of all beings to live free of the swarm's hunger. We are Velkari. We do not break. We do not retreat. We protect. The warriors roared their approval. Then they charged. Daeho watched from the command center as the Velkari tore into the swarm lines. It was brutal and beautiful and terrible all at once. Minho led the assault, carving a path through the enemy with devastating power. But the swarm was ready. They'd adapted specifically to counter Velkari tactics. Creatures with acid that could damage Velkari scales. Others with energy-dampening abilities. Still more with sheer mass and numbers. The Velkari advance slowed. Warriors fell, overwhelmed. They got within 100 yards of the coordination node, then stalled completely. They're pinned, Hyunwoo said grimly. They can't break through. Sujin stood suddenly. Then we help them. What? We're defenders too, aren't we? The Velkari are dying out there protecting us. Time to return the favor. She grabbed her weapon and headed for the exit. Other volunteers followed. Young and old. All determined to fight for their home. Daeho found himself running with them, aging body protesting but heart refusing to quit. They burst from the colony center's defenses and charged toward the Velkari position. Humans, Taewon's voice roared. Fall back. You cannot. We can try, Daeho shouted back. Minho, we're with you. The human volunteers hit the swarm flank, their weapons adding firepower to the assault. It wasn't much. They weren't warriors like the Velkari. But they were brave. They were desperate. They were fighting for everything they loved. And somehow, it was enough to tip the balance. The combined force broke through the swarm lines. Minho and Taewon reached the coordination node together, their weapons tearing into it. The massive structure shuddered, leaked fluid, began to collapse. But the swarm wasn't finished. A massive creature emerged from the node's base. Bigger than anything they'd seen before. A hive queen, covered in armor, bristling with weapons. It focused on the nearest target, It focused on Daeho. The queen lunged with terrifying speed. Daeho tried to dodge but knew he was too slow. Too old. Too human. Then Minho was there. He caught the queen's strike with his own body, taking the blow meant for his father. The impact drove him to his knees. Blood, glowing faintly blue, seeped from between his scales. "No!" Daeho screamed. The queen reared back for another strike. Minho struggled to stand, wounded, trying to shield Daeho with his own body. And something inside Daeho broke. Or maybe it was something inside Minho. Or maybe it was the bond between them. Forged years ago, and never truly broken. "I won't lose you again," Daeho shouted. And he didn't know if he was talking to Minho or the universe itself. "You're my son." Minho's eyes blazed with light. His horns erupted with energy. Around him, the air itself seemed to shimmer and warp. "And you are my father." Minho's voice rang out, powerful and absolute. "Nothing will harm you." What happened next would be debated by Velkari scholars for years to come. Minho's body blazed with light as he underwent an emergency transformation that should have taken months. His scales hardened to diamond. His horns grew and branched. His size increased further. And he created something new. Something no Velkari had done in generations. A shield. Pure energy. Projected from his will and his love, and his absolute refusal to let his father die. The shield expanded, covering not just Daeho, but the entire human force. When the queen struck, her attack shattered against it like waves against stone. Minho rose, transformed, terrible and beautiful in his power. He drove forward, his weapons finding every weakness in the queen's armor. The battle was brief and brutal. When it ended, the queen lay dead. The coordination node collapsed. And across the battlefield, swarm creatures began to falter and fail as their guiding intelligence died. Minho stood over his father, still maintaining the shield, making sure Daeho was safe. "I'm okay," Daeho said softly. "You can rest now, son." The shield faded. Minho dropped to one knee, exhausted and wounded but alive. Daeho went to him, this massive warrior who'd once been a small cub, and embraced him as best he could. "You came back," Daeho whispered. "You kept your promise." "Always," Minho replied. "I will always come back to you." Around them, Velkari and human alike began to cheer. The swarm was broken. The colony was saved. And a father held his son under an alien sky, grateful beyond words that against all odds, they'd found each other again. The celebration lasted 3 days. But the work never stopped. Daeho moved through the colony's medical center, checking on the wounded. Human and Velkari lay side by side, receiving treatment from doctors who'd never imagined working on alien biology. Unji ran between patients, her scientific knowledge proving invaluable as she helped figure out Velkari medical needs. Minho was in the largest treatment room, too big for standard facilities. His transformation had left him exhausted and covered in wounds. Velkari healers worked on him, while Daeho sat nearby, refusing to leave. "You should rest," Taewon said, approaching the human. The Velkari commander had gained new respect for Daeho after seeing him charge into battle. "He will recover. We are resilient." "I know," Daeho said, "but I spent 12 years not knowing if he was okay. I'm not leaving until he wakes up." Taewon settled beside him, an enormous warrior sitting next to an aging farmer. "You truly love him. Not as a curiosity or possession. As family. He is family. This is still strange to us. Velkari do not adopt outside our species. We barely adopt within it. Young are raised by their war packs, not individuals. They're fine to... Maybe that's why Minho is different," Daeho suggested. "He had something you don't give your young. Personal attention. Individual care." Taewon considered this. "He is our finest warrior of his generation. Strongest. fastest, most tactical, but also most willing to protect others, most concerned with minimizing loss. He paused. We thought this made him weak. Now I wonder if it makes him strong. It makes him both, Deho said. Strong enough to protect what he cares about. That's the best kind of strength. Deho. On the medical bed, Minho stirred. His eyes opened, glowing faintly in the dim light. Father, I'm here. Deho moved to his side. How do you feel? Like I fought a queen. Minho's translator carried a tone of weak humor. Did we win? We won. The swarm is retreating. You saved everyone. We saved everyone, Minho corrected. Humans and Velkari together. And, over the next days, the true scope of their victory became clear. The swarm's coordination node had been one of several in the sector, but its destruction had disrupted the entire network. Other human colonies were able to counterattack successfully. The tide had turned, and it had all happened because one colony fought back with help from unlikely allies. News spread fast. Other human worlds wanted to know about the Velkari, about this warrior species that had appeared from nowhere to save New Jeju. Reporters arrived. Politicians, military leaders, everyone wanted to meet the aliens. Governor Jiwoo handled the politics with her usual efficiency, but she made sure Minho and Deho had space when they needed it. They spent quiet evenings on the farm, which had somehow survived the battle mostly intact. Minho couldn't fit in the house anymore, too large even for the reinforced doorways. So they sat outside under the stars, talking about everything and nothing. Tell me about your training, Deho asked. About the last 12 years. Minho described the Velkari homeworld, a planet of constant challenges where warriors trained from youth. He spoke of learning to fight, to hunt, to survive, of the war packs and their strict hierarchies, of becoming a leader despite his strange ideas about protecting the weak. I told them about you, Minho said. About the human who found a lost cub and chose to keep it. Many thought I was making up stories. Others thought you'd kept me as a pet or slave. But you knew better. I always knew. You gave me a choice, even as a cub. You taught me to think for myself. That's not how you treat a slave. Deho smiled. You made that easy. You were always smart. Always independent. I just provided guidance when you needed it. I wish I could have sent messages, Minho said quietly. But Velkari don't have that tradition. We leave our youth behind for training. Communication might weaken them. Did you ever doubt you'd come back? Never. I promised you. Minho's large eyes reflected starlight. And you taught me that promises matter. That bonds matter more than tradition. A figure approached through the darkness. Sujin, her arm in a sling from the battle, but moving with determined energy. She'd become a regular visitor to the farm. Governor wants you both at the council meeting tomorrow, she said. Something about an alliance treaty. What kind of treaty? Deho asked. Between humans and Velkari. Official diplomatic relations. They want Minho to be the ambassador. Minho's translator made a sound of surprise. Me? I'm a warrior. Not a diplomat. You're the bridge, Sujin said. The only Velkari who understands both worlds. Who better to help both species work together? The council meeting the next day was crowded. Human officials. Velkari commanders. Representatives from Earth. And the Colonial Alliance. Everyone wanted a voice in shaping this new relationship. Taewon spoke for the Velkari. We came to save one of our own. We stayed because he showed us something worth saving. These humans fight with honor. They protect their weak. They stand against impossible odds. This is worthy of respect, a human admiral responded. The Velkari saved countless lives. Their combat abilities are beyond anything we possess. An alliance would benefit both species. Velkari, 99. But not everyone agreed. Some humans feared the Velkari's power. Some Velkari saw humans as too weak to be useful allies. Arguments filled the chamber. Finally, Minho stood. His size dominated the room, making everyone remember what he was: a warrior, a predator, something that could kill them all, if he chose. "I was a cub lost in the dark," he said, his voice carrying to every corner. "Alone, scared, dying. A human found me. He didn't see a weapon or a threat. He saw a child who needed help." He gestured to Deho. "This human taught me that strength without compassion is empty, that protecting others is not weakness, but purpose. The Valkyrie made me a warrior, but he made me understand why to fight." Minho turned to face both human and Valkyrie representatives. "We are different species, different biologies, different cultures. But we share something important. We both know how to stand against the darkness. We both know how to protect what we love. Together, we are stronger than apart." Taewon stepped forward. "I agree. I propose a formal alliance, not of master and servant, but of equals. Warriors, standing together." The human admiral nodded. "Seconded. Let this colony be the first example of what our species can build together." The vote was unanimous. The treaty was signed that evening, with Minho appointed as the first Valkyrie ambassador to human space. New Jeju would become a joint human-Valkyrie world, a symbol of cooperation. But for Daeho, the important part was simpler. Minho wasn't leaving again. Months passed. The colony rebuilt, stronger than before. Valkyrie warriors stayed to help, learning human ways while teaching combat techniques. Some took human names. Some learned human languages without translators. Friendships formed across species lines. Young Valkyrie began arriving. Cubs sent for training in this new style of warpack that included humans. Daeho found himself teaching them about farming, about patience, about seeing value in things beyond combat. Yoonji studied Valkyrie biology with their permission, making breakthroughs that helped both species. Sujin joined the diplomatic corps, working alongside Minho to strengthen the alliance, and Daeho returned to his farm, though it was rarely quiet now. Young Valkyrie cubs helped with the crops, learning from the old human. Visitors came constantly, wanting to see where the alliance had truly begun. 5 years after the battle, Daeho stood in his fields on a warm afternoon. He was 62 now, definitely feeling his age. But he was content. Minho approached, moving carefully through the crops so as not to damage them. He'd learned that skill over years of helping on the farm. "Father, there's something I want to show you." He led Daeho to a new structure built at the edge of the farm. A memorial garden, planted with flowers from both Earth and the Valkyrie homeworld. At its center stood a statue showing a human and a Valkyrie cub, the moment of their first meeting. The colony wanted to commemorate what happened here, Minho explained, where the alliance truly started, in a crater, with an act of kindness. Daeho studied the statue, seeing his younger self carved in stone. It was just the right thing to do. That's what makes it matter. They walked through the garden together. Other Valkyrie were there, young ones playing while their elders watched. Human children ran among them, the two species mixing with the ease of those who'd never known division. One young Valkyrie cub approached Daeho shyly. "Elder? Is it true you raised Commander Minho when he was small like me?" "I did," Daeho confirmed. "Were you scared?" "He's so big and strong now. He was never scary. Even when I knew he'd grow into a warrior. He was always just my son." The cub considered this. "My warpack leaders say cubs are weakness. That we must be hard to be strong. Number 1. Daeho knelt down, bringing himself to the cub's level. "Can I tell you a secret? Being loved doesn't make you weak. It gives you something to fight for, something to protect. That's the strongest thing there is." The cub's eyes widened. "Is that why Commander Minho is the greatest warrior? Because he had love?" "That's exactly why." Minho watched this interaction with obvious pride. After the cub ran off to play, he spoke quietly. You're teaching the next generation. Changing how Velkari think about strength and family. Just sharing what I learned from raising you, Deho said. That love makes everything stronger. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Minho made an announcement. Father, I have news. I've been chosen to lead the joint Velkari Human Defense Fleet. The position is mine if I accept. That's wonderful. Of course you should accept. It means traveling. Months away sometimes. I wanted your permission first. Deho smiled. Son, you're not a cub anymore. You don't need my permission. But you have my blessing. Go protect people. That's what you were meant to do. And you'll be here when I return? I'll always be here. This is home. For both of us. That evening, they sat on the porch one more time, watching the stars emerge. Minho had brought something with him. A small box. I kept this through all my training, he said, opening it. Inside was the first collar Deho had made for him, tiny and worn. To remember where I came from. I kept yours too, Deho said, pointing to the memorial shelf inside. To remember what mattered most. They sat in comfortable silence, father and son. Separated by biology, but connected by something deeper. The galaxy had changed around them. Wars had been fought. Alliances formed. History made. But at its heart was something simple. A lonely man who'd found a lost child and chose kindness. A young being who'd remembered that kindness and returned to protect the one who'd saved him. Thank you, Minho said suddenly. For everything. For finding me. For choosing me. For teaching me what it means to be more than just a warrior. Thank you for coming back, Deho replied. For keeping your promise. For showing an old farmer that family can be found anywhere, even in a crater, on a dark night. Inside the house, Minho's communication device chimed. Other Velkari needed him. Diplomatic matters. Defense planning. The work of building a new future. But that could wait a few more minutes. For now, there was just this. A father and son watching the stars together, knowing that whatever came next, they'd face it as family. And in a galaxy of darkness and danger, that small light of love and loyalty burned bright enough to change everything. The alliance would grow stronger. More species would join. New challenges would come. But it all started here. On a small farm on the edge of a colony world, where a human taught an alien cub what it meant to be family. And that lesson would echo across the stars for generations to come.